Welcome back to Totality Town. Hey everyone, this is Zach. I started the Totality Town YouTube channel back in 2017 as part of helping Andrews, North Carolina, where I lived at the time, prepare for the Great American Total Solar Eclipse. I've been pretty quiet on the YouTube channel since then, but expect a lot more from now on. Ever since 2017, I've been doing more and more with eclipses of all kinds. I've been doing solar viewing and photography. I've also been planning a lot for the next total solar eclipse that'll touch US soil in April of 2024. So during the lead up to 2017, there were several different eclipse podcasts and some YouTube channels with a couple episodes on eclipses here and there, but virtually no one made it to 10 episodes. Well, if all goes according to plan, I'm looking at hopefully 50 or more episodes or live streams between now and the next time North America enters the moon's shadow. We're going to cover topics ranging from solar and lunar viewing to solar science, astrophotography, and of course eclipses, transit, and even some occultations throughout the solar system. So not just limited here to Earth. So all of that, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of what's coming in the months and years ahead. For the rest of this episode, let's start simple, and we're going to do a quick review of all the different types of eclipses. So, basics first. We only have two general categories of eclipses, lunar and solar. Both types are all about shadows. Either the Earth is in the moon's shadow, blocking our view of the sun, and that's a solar eclipse, or Earth's shadow is falling on the moon and blocking our view of it, and that's a lunar eclipse. When our view is completely blocked, we're looking at a total eclipse, but it's more common that only part of our view is blocked, and thus partial eclipses happen a bit more. Although it might look like this alignment would happen twice a month, there's more to the story. The moon's orbit is tilted about 5 degrees compared to the plane of Earth's orbit. The result is that the new moon and the full moon usually happen when the moon is too far above or too far below the level of the Earth and the sun. But we're only going to get eclipses when the sun, Earth, and moon are all on the same level. So when does that happen? Well, as you can see in the animation, the moon's orbit will touch Earth's orbit twice each month. Once on its way up, and we call that the ascending node, and once again on its way back down. That's the descending. Although these look like places in the animation, it's really going to be more helpful to think of them as times, and we'll come back to that in a second. The place or the time when the moon touches or crosses the plane of the Earth's orbit, these are called nodes. If you draw a line between the two nodes, you'll get what's called the line of nodes. Now, watch carefully, and you'll see that the direction that the line of nodes points will change over time. That's due to how the sun is constantly tugging on the moon as it orbits the Earth. Eventually, the line of nodes works its way around so that it's going to be pointed directly at the sun, and that's what we want. If the new moon or the full moon happens within a certain number of hours of when the moon hits that node, we get an eclipse. Now the question is, how close does it have to be? So remember two different numbers, 28 and 20. And this is where we come back to times. If the moon is either new or full within 28 hours of when it hits that node, we're going to get at least a partial eclipse. However, if it's within 20 hours of hitting the node, there'll be a total eclipse. And we can get really complex with this. You can even use nodes to help you figure out which part of the Earth is going to get to see the eclipse. But that's more than we're going to get to go into here. I've put together two simple flowcharts that I hope are helpful, and they go into that kind of detail. There's a link to that file in the video description if you want to get into the nitty-gritty. Now, so far we have lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, and we have partial and total versions of each. That's 4 different kinds of eclipses so far. There are actually a couple of other flavors that we're going to look at though. Remember that the moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. It's an ellipse. And so the result is that there are times when the moon is closer to the Earth and times when it's further away from the Earth. When the moon is further away, it's going to look a little bit smaller because of the distance. If it's far enough away, the moon will appear small enough that it's not going to be able to cover the entire face of the sun's disk, even if the alignment is otherwise perfect. We call these annular eclipses because there's a ring of the sun's disk still visible and it's going to be surrounding the moon. This kind of solar eclipse is aptly called a ring of fire. You'll see that in the press a lot. Now, the rarest type of eclipse is the hybrid solar eclipse. And this happens pretty rarely. The situation needs to be pretty specific. The moon has to be at just the right distance so that certain parts of the Earth see a total eclipse, but other parts only see an annular eclipse. And the way this works is, you see that the Earth's surface is curved, and the parts that are towards the edge of the curve are far enough away that the moon can't quite completely cover the sun's disk. And so the eclipse will start as an annular, but then as we move along the Earth's surface, part of the Earth is a little bit closer, and that region will see a total eclipse, and then we get an annular eclipse again at the end as the moon moves towards the other edge of the Earth and goes off into space again. Hybrids don't happen all that often. The most recent hybrid solar eclipse was in 2013, and the next one's not going to be until Australia in 2023. That's everything for solar eclipses. Now, let's go back to lunar eclipses. There are two parts to the Earth's shadow. A total or partial lunar eclipse is going to happen when at least part of the moon falls within that darker part of the Earth's shadow. When the moon only passes through the lighter of the two shadow regions, this is known as a penumbral eclipse, and these are very common. Altogether, this makes 7 different types of eclipses, 4 different types of solar, and 3 different types of lunar eclipses. The next question is, how many eclipses happen in a year and how often? But for that, you're going to have to tune into the next installment of Totality Town, where we're not only going to answer that question about how many eclipses can happen in a year, but also investigate the idea of eclipse seasons, including taking a look at the upcoming eclipse on July 4th of 2020. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember to subscribe to Totality Town here on YouTube and follow me on Instagram at AstroZach, where I share a number of my astro photos that I take, largely focusing on eclipses, the sun, and the moon. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you next time on Totality Town.